For those of you who live in Tennessee, this message is for you. Recently, the Department of Human Services was hit with a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit against the Department of Human Services for under the SNAP program. They were saying that people that had applied for programs that the application was in the 30 days, that the state DHS was doing little or nothing, losing people applications. They were denying them benefits, and it was forcing people who were getting benefits to either be denied, or it took so long and they denied, forcing people who had to make a decision of pay their rent or feed their kids. One lady, she had to feed her kids, and she used her rent money and got evicted. Now, there's no monetary amount on this, but it's helping because it's bringing attention to how the Tennessee Department of Human Services really operate. Well, I worked there. I worked there for a whole month and a half. And when I tell you that lawsuit just touching the surface of what's there to come, then it is. I'm just going to bring it home. I ain't going to sit here and do no presentation. I'm going to bring it straight home. Was the state doing all of that? Yeah, they were doing that and then some, especially at my local office. When I tell you that it was, I had worked for the state for back here in 2000. And back then, women went to work dressed like women, or they went to work dressed appropriate. And it was all about getting that job done, looking the numbers and everything. So when I went back, I worked for the employment security. So when I went back for the state, I ended up getting a job at DHS. And the way things was ran down there, it's amazing. It's a mind-boggling within itself. We were told to, caseworkers work from home, and a lot of times they would tell us to lie and tell us that they had called the applicant when they really didn't. And at that time, the state had Accent. And Accent was an old software that they were using, and they was transferring over to EMBS. And EMBS told you, it connected the state, all the state things, employment security, anything that had to do with the state, to one area, like a central bank. But a lot of people, as they was doing that, a lot of people was still putting stuff in the portal, and it was coming up missing, and they would be denied. We had caseworkers that lied and said that they called somebody and they really didn't call. You had a high turnover rate for the state because caseworkers was quitting or either getting fired, but they were quitting, and they would, some of them cases stayed in limbo for 2-3 months, which meant that the client couldn't get anything. But one thing did stand out, is that when I had a veteran who had his stuff stolen, and he was applying for benefits, and he should have had priority. And I made sure I set him up, and I got him an interview that day, because when I worked there, if a client had a problem and she was coming in, I didn't just give her something and send her away. I made sure I did follow up. If I couldn't get an answer that day, I called, I could contest to me. I called that person, and at the end of my shift, and I told them, look, I don't have an answer, but I'm still working on it. I'll call you back. So right before I got fired for something, after I asked for ADA accommodations, I had people coming in that office asking for me direct. But anyway, when I made a mistake, they made me go back and fix it, and I did. I don't like doing stuff like, one thing about me is if I make my own mistake, I like to correct it, because especially when you're dealing with somebody else's life, and you want to make sure you do right by people, regardless of their circumstances. Yeah, but you had people that I'm gonna finish telling you about the man. Okay, after the man got approved, he got approved for food stamps. He lost his, he didn't have a card. He had never had a card. He never applied for food stamps. Okay, instead of them overnight for the food stamp thing. They turned around and gave, and he had to wait 10 days. He had to wait 10 days. They had him come to the office, but he had to wait 10 days. That man came up there every day looking for that card. And it hurt me so, because all we had to do is go into the system and overnight him a card. My supervisor could have approved it, and that was it. But now we were told the person that interviewed him did it for 10 days. 10 days. Ain't that's amazing, ain't it? 10 days of waiting to get something to eat. When they could put that on their card overnight. And because of that, a lot of people who was they documents was being put into the system, and it was going in limbo. Nobody really, the text really didn't do anything. They really didn't do anything to try to fix it or help anybody. It was like business as usual. And it's a lot of clients that got more than maybe 5 or 6 applications in there. And they didn't backlog it. Now, that would have been too much like right for the state. So when they denied you for whatever reason it is, that like I said, if it was your mistake, you got denied. If it was their mistake, you got denied. They turned around and when you apply for a new food stamps, it went for that month. It didn't go back for the months that you messed up and all of that. It went for the month that you did. So I'm seeing all of this, and this ain't me. This I'm not feeling the vibe, and then on top of that, I had applied for another job. I hadn't been there a month. And I applied for another job, and I told him, I said, hey, this ain't me. This kind of drama ain't me. The way they, like I said, the way they was dressing up there, them young girls wearing them short dresses, and when they bend over, you see all their business. Back in the day, my office manager would have sent them home, and then when they got there, rolled them up. You don't do no mess like that. But then you got an office manager that he comes to work, sit in his office head for the day. Then he go to lunch. He don't speak to you. He really didn't speak to black folks. Now that, and then he, went back in his office, and I guess he hid up under the desk, and then he came back out and went home. And he did that, while I was there. He didn't speak. We didn't have no meetings. You didn't see him. I didn't, I only saw him 2 times. Once when he looked at me crazy, and the other one when I was being let go. So before I got fired, yeah, I did. I wrote the State of Tennessee Commissioner of DHS. I did. And I put it under the whistleblower. And I wrote him a letter, and I told him everything that I'm telling you. And what happened was, I wrote it at 8 o'clock that morning. I was terminated at 1:40. And you said, Samantha, why are you telling me this? Why are you telling me this, Samantha? Because everything, I'm going to tell you something, as bad as everything is going on, my spirit told me to write that letter. And everything that's going on now, you know what? It's finna be exposed. Everything finna be exposed. The vomit of this state is finna be exposed. Because you know what? Everybody wanted to hear itchy ears. They wanted to believe. And our governor is a Trump supporter. And he's doing all this stuff and everything. He's not listening to everybody. And see, for those of you who think that all the Hispanics are getting benefits, that's not true. It's not true. It's more whites getting food stamps here than anybody else. But see, we finna F around and find out, because of the simple reason, it is what it is. See, now, they like I said, the exposure has been coming out. Somebody filed a class action lawsuit against the state. And they're not lying. They're not lying. They just probably hit the surface of what's going on. Because workers was intimidated, threatened. Oh, I seen it. Threatening. They were bullied to do a job. And the other ones didn't even care. They just came to work, and when you told them about that client and they hadn't seen that client and she want her benefits, that you see that they in the office. Man, they used to click that thing and say, I'm at lunch. I'm away. They want to hear that. And then you had to go get your supervisor involved. You had to write letters and include your supervisor. This is something they supposed to do. But see, when you got a toxic environment, when you working in a toxic environment, you can't do a good job. When you sitting up here and they don't care about nothing, they more worried about it was like when you check in, you had to be seen in 5 minutes or Nashville would call. They wasn't worried about you getting your benefits. They just wanted to look good so Nashville wouldn't call. So they messed up. They've been messing up. And then they changing over to a new system and gave all of us a one day training. You getting ready to implement one of the biggest systems in the state of Tennessee, and yet you giving people 1 day. So I hope they win. And if you know somebody that's getting food stamps in Tennessee, oh, and by the way, you got until Sunday to prove your loss. If somebody stole your benefits. But if you know somebody that's doing this, and I know this is a long video, share it with as many people as you like in Tennessee. Y'all take care.